brothers, oldest brother Dean, youngest brother Sam.
God's sister.
So then he doesn't become a demon, he becomes a demon.
Chuck is God, because of course he is. Michael from a different reality.
The actual Antichrist.
Basically zombies. Utterly whack.
Welcome back to another issue. I'm Beastie Boy.
I'm Table.
I'm Red.
And it is I, Shino Brando.
And in this issue, we try to say goodbye to Supernatural, but instead unlock Season 16.
For those who have somehow managed to stay ignorant of this show for the entire 15 years it has been running, it first aired in September 2005. Supernatural is a show that started off as a monster of the week adventure between two brothers who were attempting to track down their father, who had gone missing on a monster hunt. Jazz hands. These brothers are Sam and Dean Winchester, always said in that order despite Dean being the older one, and they play the most significant parts in the series just by virtue of being the two that don't die, or at least come back more consistently. However, there is one other character who comes back surprisingly significantly. In Season 4, we are introduced to Castiel, the Angel of Thursday. I'm not kidding.
This is a good start.
Gripped Dean tight and raised him from perdition. As in, at the end of Season 3, Dean went to hell, and Castiel was his ticket out of there.
He happens to be an angel of a specific day of the week.
Yes, he's the Angel of Thursday. He's a good little boy, but he also seems to know absolutely nothing about humanity, so we can only assume he's been paying a lot of attention to, like, bees.
And he just happens to get Thursday. Okay.
Castiel is possessing the body of Jimmy Novak, who was just a dude with a wife and a family, and Cass was like, psst, I gotta use your little meat suit as a puppet for a little bit. And Jimmy, being a religious fellow, was like, yeah, sure, go nuts. This would prove to be a poor life choice.
Oh no.
Throughout the series, Castiel dies a few times. Some of them he gets resurrected during the same episode, but most of the time he's dead for a while.
When he gets resurrected, does it change the day of the week for him?
No.
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, okay.
But what never is explained is exactly how he comes back.
Okay.
Sometimes we get an answer, kind of. So the first time we see Castiel die is actually in like a future alternate timeline type thing that might not even be like real. It might just be imaginary specifically to fuck with Dean, in which Castiel has fallen, is now human and also really into drugs, and dies while they're going on a semi-suicide mission to kill Satan. Dean then travels back in time and goes, well, I need to stop that timeline from happening. He did just watch his not-quite-boyfriend die. Important to note, Dean might just be the most repressed motherfucker in the world. One of the big issues that has plagued the fandom for a very long time is what is in Dean Winchester's closet? Is it him? Because I think it might be.
Is it more plaid?
It might be. There's a lot of skeletons in there, that's for sure.
Facts.
He's a literal serial killer. He's killed a lot of people. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Angels, humans, and demons alike.
Yeah.
In some extra material, we find out that the first time Dean killed a human person was when he was 12. So,
Wow, then.
yeah. So he's not okay. The biggest reason that he's a repressed motherfucker, his massive daddy issues.
Ooh.
This is relevant to Season 16 because his relationship with Castiel is one of the biggest reasons that Season 15 got fucky towards the end. Now, any good fan, historically speaking at least, knows better than to go hounding creators about their ships. You just don't do that. That shit, that stays in the forums, that stays on LiveJournal, that stays on fanfiction.net or Tumblr or wherever you're doing that stuff. AO3 is the most popular one these days. The point is, shipping is for the fan, and it should be kept separate from creators, because mostly they don't want to hear about it, especially like slash shipping, so anything queer in any way.
Did you know that 37% of you aren't subscribed to the channel on YouTube? You can help change that by hitting the subscribe button just below the video. And now back to the show.
Because a lot of queer creators won't entertain your questions, and worst case scenario are going to be rude about it. This has happened in the history of the Supernatural fandom because Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, who play Dean and Sam respectively, do a lot of panels. There's a fair amount of interaction with fans over the last 15 years. And every now and then someone will bring up a ship or something. Now, these two tend not to entertain ship talk very much. Like, they'll brush it off, they'll make a joke, carry on. There's a particularly memorable instance. I believe it was back in 2012, where
Mhm.
Jensen is asked something about how come he can have a crush on Dr. Sexy, who is a fictional character in this fictional universe. He's got a show, it's a trashy soap opera,
Okay,
which
yeah.
Dean is canonically a fan of.
Okay.
How come he can have a crush on Dr. Sexy, but Destiel can't be shown? And his response was, Destiel's not real, which is very much held up as actor Ackles does not support the ship. There's a secondary incident where someone brought to get signed an essay they wrote for university,
Mhm.
which was about Dean Winchester as a bisexual character. And we've got pictures, so we know he did this. He, along with his signature, put a question mark at the end of the title and wrote no, turning it into a question. Of course, later that same day, Misha Collins, the actor who plays Castiel,
Mhm.
also signed this essay, crossed out the no, and wrote in big letters, yes. Because Misha Collins
Mhm.
is well aware that his job and continued placement on Supernatural is dependent on the fans.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
some of the times when he's died, it's been very clear that he wasn't necessarily meant to come back.
Mhm.
The end of season 6 is particularly memorable for that. He walks into a lake and explodes. He is being possessed by goo monsters from purgatory. So,
Okay.
and he explodes, and he was meant to be dead. He gets brought back following this because basically fan outcry. So Misha Collins is well aware that his role and his continued employment is related to how much people want him to be on the show. As a result, he's always played into Destiel talk. He's played into shippy stuff. And he is largely why there is not only Destiel as a ship, but an RPF ship, which is to say real person fiction ship, called Cockles, between him and Jensen Ackles.
I don't like that.
Wait. Pause. Hold on.
Mhm.
In that whole sentence, I gathered that people are making fan fiction about real people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is
It's-
fucked. Okay, go on.
You are
isn't-
correct.
That is, in fact, what happened, and also was brought to their attention.
Wow, that's
Oh.
fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Now,
Wow.
as you can imagine, not
Mhm.
everyone was super comfortable with this. Misha Collins kind of let it slide to at least some extent because, again, this is how he keeps his job. But
Mhm.
I want to be clear. I'm not trying to paint him as a bad person. He does a lot of charity work. He's been involved in a lot of situations where he's been kind, he's reached out, he's been helpful. But, you know, he is a guy who needs employment.
He's
Mhm.
also a guy that likes to stir the pot sometimes.
Okay.
As a result, there's some talk in the fandom, it has been for years, about to what extent J squared, which is what Padalecki and Ackles' friendship is referred to as,
Mhm.
and how much they actually like Misha Collins as a coworker and as a person. One of the big theories, especially given that following season 8, Ackles was relieved to not be doing as many scenes with Collins in seasons 9 and 10.
Okay.
Like, a lot of people theorize that that's because of the RPF stuff and how deeply uncomfortable it makes them, which is totally fair, and wanting to distance themselves from that in part by distancing themselves from Misha Collins
Yeah.
and the character of Castiel entirely. This is not to say that the alternate theory about why Ackles reportedly doesn't really like Destiel or hasn't historically is homophobia. It could be homophobic. He's from Texas. It's not out of the line of possibility.
Right.
It doesn't help that Supernatural has two big types of fan. It's got the fans that it's trying to attract. You know, your manly men gonna watch these gruff guys kill things and say stupid one-liners and be a little bit misogynistic, but not too much because that would be bad on screen.
Mhm.
And then there's the queer audience, which makes up, I don't want to say the majority of their fan base, but the fandom.
Right.
I see.
Which is a lot of people who got into it as teens, as young adults, and while they were really coming to understand themselves better and saw themselves in these characters, for better or for worse. We should all establish that a CW show is one of the worst places you could ever project and figure out your identity.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. CW like representation there is usually it's either really good or it's not. It's so bad, man. They got to get that straight.
It's that weird fine line. Just
Yeah, like
we're
sometimes,
there. We ain't.
sometimes they do it well. Sometimes they just like fucking fumble it, and I'm like, come on,
They
man.
just, as per se, come out of the wrong closet.
Yeah, it's like, come on, you could write better than that.
You could get literally any queer person to write it, and they write it better. But that's just my hill to die
man.
on.
Well, one of the interesting things is authorial intent here, because a queer person looks at the friendship between Dean Winchester and Charlie Bradbury, a nerdy lesbian who is introduced later on in the show,
Played by
and
Felicia
sees
Day.
what
I gotta look her up.
and sees what is very clearly MLM WLW solidarity. Two people who are attracted to the same gender who are bros while not being attracted to each other in any way. That's how that relationship reads. But it was also very clearly written by someone like Charlie is very clearly what a straight guy thinks a lesbian is. So the fact that they managed to nail that relationship dynamic completely by accident, because again, the writers don't necessarily want you to think Dean's bi. Like that's not their intent. And yet, like there's one scene where Castiel has been brainwashed. It's a thing that angels do to each other for shits, giggles, and profit, you know?
For what, like a prank?
Wiped Michael's memory.
Got him.
Punked. He got punked.
Ashton Kutcher's there.
It's really funny because they throw Michael in a box.
Oh, they did.
He got
Yeah,
punked.
they throw
Oh,
Michael in
God.
a very, very bad fiery box. It's awesome.
Oh my god.
Getting deep in there, Michael, doesn't matter. It's gonna get hot in there.
Yeah.
Punked.
I'm
Yeah.
Gabriel, and welcome to Jackass and Punked at the same time.
Supernatural writers not being able to clock that they're writing a bi guy. Yes, part of that, interestingly, is Ackles' acting choices. For a guy who's supposedly playing a straight dude, he's more than willing to check out other men. There's also instances where they meet a siren at one point in the show. Like, I will be the thing that is most attractive to you, the thing that you most want in the world. And Dean Siren's a dude.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not subtle.
Oh.
So there have been a lot of textual and subtextual, hey, look, this guy's not straight moments. And I actually specifically asked Red to sort out some of the most egregious and least ignorable ones.
So I'm going to take the driver's seat here for a little bit while, passenger shuts her cake hole. In season 8, Dean has found himself in purgatory, along with some vampires and the goopy monsters table mentioned earlier. Right. So as Dean enters purgatory and lands and is attacked by a whole bunch of vampires, we meet a character called Benny, and he's also a vampire, who says that if they take him to the gate to get out, basically, in exchange for protecting them while they're there and on the road there, they will allow him passage into Dean's body, and out the door they will go. All three of them. Well, our boy Dean and our boy Benny and Cass spend a long time together, and if memory serves me right, Cass gets separated a little bit.
As soon as they land in purgatory, Cass runs for the hills because he knows that as an angel, he will attract more attention than Dean would on his own. So he's like, I'll fuck off, and all the worst monsters will come for me, and Dean will be safe. Except Dean does not take that lying down. He cleaves his way through purgatory, asking every nasty son of a bitch, where's the angel? And if they don't have a good answer for him, he kills them. And if they do have a good answer, he kills them anyway.
Wait, what?
This is how he meets Benny while tracking down Cass. And Benny goes, I've got a way out. And he's like, I'm not leaving without the angel. So he and Benny have to go on, continue this fetch quest. And then they find him. And that reunion is pretty wonderful. Among things in it, Dean insists that he needs Cass. There's also some weird tension between Cass and Benny. Benny, who's like, I don't think having an angel with us is a good idea. And Castiel, who's like, you're a literal monster. Fuck you. But they kind of put aside their differences like two grumpy people who have a crush on the same guy because they both like that guy and want him to be happy.
Okay.
Benny makes a reappearance later on, and only really in the form of like figment of imagination Benny, where Dean's kind of having a crisis, and he goes to his happy place, which is monster heaven, I guess. guy has so many issues. He talks through some of his issues with this imagined Benny.
Okay.
So, with all that knowledge, the fans had put together that these two men, well, men as you get for Benny, entered into some sort of Brokeback Mountain relationship for a little while.
Okay, we have to herd this sheep over here. Yeah, that's right. We have to herd the sheep. Let's go.
Yeah, we're herd the sheep, climb in my tent. We'll figure some things out. Hang on.
Yeah.
Purgatory gets awful cold at night. Come on.
It requires some
Hey, pal,
cuddling, you know.
Hey, pal, have you ever dick wrestled before? Come over here.
They did not on
They
screen.
boink in our hearts. There is nothing textual. There's no
Panel.
on-screen diddly darning.
Yeah, off-panel blinking. Understood.
Off-panel
Unfortunately-
implied boinking.
We got to be clear on this because CW will claw its own teeth out before admitting Dean isn't straight.
Yeah.
This becomes an issue later.
Remember this.
Unfortunately for Benny, Dean's cool southern boyfriend, he eventually decides that the human world is in fact not for him and he would be happier being dead. And when Sam and one of their allies go to Purgatory to like run an errand or whatever, Dean, being worried, is like, hey, would you go to Purgatory and just keep an eye on my brother and then just hop back again? And Benny was like, yeah, sure. But in Purgatory, he was like, actually, I do not want to come back. I'm just going to stay here.
Sorry.
Haha, no.
Honestly, fuck you. Like,
Yeah, fuck. Benny
Yeah.
had a woke moment just now.
So Dean had to decapitate his boyfriend and then never saw him again.
That's not the only hit he got off with him. Anyway.
yo,
He's not the only alternate romance that Dean has been dealing with. And this other one has actually been significantly more prevalent.
Oh, yes. So, a little introduction on who Crowley is. Crowley is a crossroads demon, and a crossroads demon job is to make deals with humans, so that way, you know, chaos ensues.
A price for a price, right?
Yeah, you know, you get your deepest, darkest wish, but also you're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Because the goal is to get as many souls in hell. So, this crossroads demon eventually becomes king of hell. Crowley is played by...
Mark Shepard.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Who
Like
also turns up...
Commander Shepard?
Mark Shepard
That makes it a very different story.
is everybody's favorite. Oh, hey, it's that guy. He appears.
He's got one of
in-
those faces.
Yeah, he appears in Firefly. He appears in Doctor Who, not once but twice. There's two different characters, and in a super special turn of events that's going to come up in about 45 more seconds, he plays a gay character that's in a relationship with a black man explicitly in Doctor Who.
Really now? Okay.
Oh.
In 2014, Mark Shepard confirmed that Crowley was pansexual.
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
Throughout this entire series, Crowley has been making sex jokes at both Sam and Dean, referring to him
What?
as, I believe even in a sentence he calls Castiel, when Castiel and Crowley are on a buddy trip together, he definitely calls Castiel a bottom.
Oh shit.
He really called him out like that, eh?
And so
Okay.
Castiel's a bottom. Anyway, so in season 10, Dean is taken over by a, let's just call it a magical MacGuffin for the sake of argument, and this magical raid button has brought him back to life. Well, the first person that Dean sought out was Crowley, and Crowley decided to be the bestest guy ever and take him on what is essentially a bang and booze cruise throughout the southern United States.
Okay.
I believe it stated like 2-ish weeks. Nailing ladies, singing karaoke, drinking beer, drinking God knows what. And it's kind of implied, or well, to fans anyway, they have read it this way. Because again, the CW would rather chew its own arm off than call a character anything but straight. That Crowley had been with Dean biblically.
At the very least, when their relationship starts to deteriorate as a result of Sam tracking down his brother and Cass getting more than 30 seconds to speak to him in a row,
Mm-hmm.
that Crowley's actually really invested in this emotionally. Whether you want to read that as, oh, you're my new bestie, or, you know,
Who's
I-
to say?
it really
Mhm.
feels like Crowley's got a crush, but you know.
When you start
am
to
I?
put 1 and 2 and, you know, you start to make 3, things start to add up. And when you throw that in with the the Doctor Who reference that was very popular at the time because of the combined fandom with Sherlock known as Super Wholock
Oh man. Okay.
We should all be glad it's dead.
that has since now had its revival on TikTok and then it's cease smothering with a pillow again. You start to make 4 when you slide 2 and 2 together, you know?
Uh-huh.
Why do we think he and Cass are a thing? So obviously, season 4, there's a lot of tension between them, just in terms of Cass being the angel who saved him from hell, and Dean being like, I didn't believe in angels until this came up. That's kind of awkward, and also stop telling me what to do. What? Cass falls for the brothers, as in, he begins to lose his connection to heaven in order to help them try and fight the apocalypse. He also eventually actually falls from heaven and becomes just some fucking dude. Still wearing Jimmy Novak's body, though, which is still a dick move. When he comes back from the exploding thing, he's actually got amnesia, and this woman found him wandering on the side of the road and decided to marry him. And he's just been, handing out free therapy and also trying to heal people with magic because he's a fucking angel who still has magic powers.
They might mistake him for Jesus. Mm-hmm.
They called him Emmanuel. That was his name.
Oh boy.
Except the second he met Dean again, Dean was like, hi, Cass. He was like, that's not my name. You've killed a lot of people. Let's go on an adventure, essentially. No brain cells. This hot serial killer, he was down instantaneously.
Down, and might I say, to clown.
There was that brainwashing plot line I briefly referenced, where essentially the angels go, you've been too rebellious. We're just gonna factory reset. And part of that process was equipping him to kill Dean by having him do it thousands of times with fake Deans. As a result, we get this famous crypt scene where Cass is beating the shit out of Dean, and Dean's on his knees, bloodied, looking up at him saying, I need you. And that gets through the brainwashing in a classic move. The big thing about that scene, though, is that I need you wasn't the line. The original line was, I love you. Ackles said that was out of character, and he was probably right, even if that's a homophobic choice. Dean's not the kind of guy who'd say I love you, really at all, but that was the line. And that's not even the worst of it. So, Cass falls, and we get the Deanman plot, eventually, with Dean is now evil, blah, blah, blah. He goes around, and he nearly kills Cass in a very much reversal of the crypt scene. And he also doesn't do it because true love TM. Cass dies in season 13 and he comes back again. It's I'd love to say that it's complex, but sometimes it feels hella one note because these writers really do not have all that much creativity in their little bodies. But this sets the stage for season 15. So in season 15, there's this thing called the Empty, which is semi-sentient and also kind of a dick. And Cass makes a deal with it that if he is ever happy, it'll just eat him. Helps out with some other stuff in exchange. So he basically says that he made this deal because he knew that he could never have the one thing that would truly make him happy. He says this in season 15, episode 18, which aired November 4th, the night of the American presidential election.
Oh boy.
In this episode, he confesses to Dean that it's always been for him, that he's able to love humanity because he loves Dean, because he's met him and he's gotten to see him and he's loved him the entire time they've interacted, and that he was so sure that the one thing that would make him happy would be being together that he knew he could never have. But now he realizes that just saying it has made him happy, which is why he gets eaten by the void.
Oh, okay. Can't be gay and happy.
No. It was the fastest bury your gays trope ever seen. He didn't even finish. Why this matters is because in the English version, Dean basically gets out, Cass, why does this sound like goodbye? Don't do this. And then nothing else. And he sits down on the floor and cries after Cass is gone.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the definitive version necessarily. So in the Spanish dub, and the Italian dub, and the Portuguese dub, this confession gets reciprocated.
Oh, in every other country, it's okay.
So in the Portuguese, he doesn't say that he loves him back until after he's been eaten by the void. So that's the slightly more tragic version. So we all know what a ADR is, right?
ADR.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
when an actor does voice work after it's already been shot.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And it gets dubbed over.
So
Mhm,
kind of like,
mhm.
so for example, Logan would be a good example for that.
Yeah, there's that
Oh.
infamous clip that goes around very occasionally on the internet where it's Hugh Jackman in the booth doing all the running and the grunting for scenes in Logan.
Okay.
So we know that after the shooting of this episode, Ackles got called in to do some ADR stuff where apparently he just did crying noises. We also know that depending on how you read lips, not necessarily what he says lines up with what he says, you know?
Mhm.
And there's a couple points where it looks like he says something, but you don't hear him say anything. So the theory goes that the confession was reciprocated in English too until the studio decided to backtrack.
Oh, yeah. And then they made him do his lines over. Oh.
That's kind of stupid, but that's actually
Now-
totally stupid.
This isn't confirmed, obviously. There's
Mhm.
talk of rogue dubbers that did these things for the other languages, or that they were reading into things, trying to just convey what they felt was the meaning rather than the explicit lines.
Okay.
There are
They're-
people who claim they have connections to people who are working on the writing team and that there was never an I love you involved.
There's also, on the flip side of that coin, there are some people that say they have connections to people on set that day that say they recorded the original line.
More specifically, in an interview, Jensen Ackles said that he had a crew member record the scene on his phone because he wanted to have that for himself,
Okay.
which is where we get the Ackles release the tapes kind of talk.
Release the Ackles cut.
So this isn't even the only place Destiel went canon, because I have a list here of the 7 times and ways.
Go on.
Destiel canon the first, when the episode went up on November 5th, and we know that at least Cass is gay and is in love with Dean.
Mhm.
Destiel the second was the Spanish dub, I love you too.
Mhm.
Destiel the third, script leak, where Cass pulls him close and with the thoughts in his head of still beautiful, still Dean
Oh.
Winchester.
Oh.
Canon the fourth, the Spanish dub actor confirms intentional reciprocation, busting the rogue translator myth.
Hmm.
Canon the fifth, the 1509 purgatory speech revealing an I love you that should have happened. This is just something that happened earlier in the season when he was thinking about his vampire boyfriend. Canon the sixth, Wikipedia changes their entries to list each other as their love interests. Canon the seventh, one of the writers confirms romantic subtext between Dean and ominous other character.
At this
7
point,
times.
Dean should just have a tramp stamp that says insert bill here.
And Misha Collins has outright said at this point that he's been playing Cass as in love with Dean for years. But the issue is that these fans who have been talking about this have gotten a lot of flack for saying that they think it's real, that they think it's legitimate. Now, obviously, I established earlier that I am of the opinion you keep shipping to yourself. You don't bring it to creators. You don't say, make my ship canon, because they're never going to. That's just not how this works. But at the same time, for these writers and actors and whatever to tell fans that they're wrong or crazy or delusional for reading into what they've created is just an asshole move. So Misha Collins' contract had him in for 15 episodes this season. And by the episode, the 18th episode where his character dies, he had only shot 13. So people kind of expected for him to come back in the next 2, right? Did not. Despite the fact everyone is fairly confident he was in Vancouver, which is where the shooting gets done for most of the show. His last appearance was in episode 18. There's a voice cameo when it's actually Satan. There's a reference to him being pulled out of Super Hell by his weird little overpowered son child thing,
Mm-hmm.
but he never appears on screen again. One of the theories about that is that he was supposed to be in the last episode, and then there was quarantining issues, that he failed to quarantine appropriately or whatever, and they ended up having to shoot without him.
Right.
However, that seems like a weird call given that everyone else did it fine. It's like, okay, either he was just hilariously irresponsible, or you told him he had a quarantining issue and refused to let him on set and just wrote around him. So maybe all of this wouldn't be as big an issue as it is if the finale hadn't been so utterly garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's the gist. In episode 19, they wrap up the big plot line. So in this finale, they're just doing a hunt, and you don't want to know what they're hunting this time? Vampires in clown masks.
Let me just get my folder ready. More missing clowns.
You know?
Stop.
So they go and they do their thing, and they end up in a barn, and they behead the people they need to behead. Dean gets thrown across the room into a wall and just kind of stands there while Sam finishes up. But surprise! He got impaled on some rebar that was just sticking out of the wall for some reason. Very hazardous. Bad work environment.
Oh shit, did not
And-
inspect that.
They absolutely did not. And as he's hanging there, dying very, 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 very slowly, I cannot emphasize how slowly he dies enough.
About
Mhm.
40,
and Sam-
about an hour with commercials.
He and Sam have a long talk about, like, nah, it's my time. Let me go. I'm tired. It's okay. You're going to be able to do this without me. And credit where it's due. Other than the fact this takes a long time and starts to get a little ridiculous as that happens,
Mm-hmm.
they do a good job writing emotions. During this conversation, they actually quote the very first episode where Sam goes, I can't do this without you. And he goes, yes, you can. Well, I don't want to. Which is the exchange that they had in that first episode when Dean comes looking for Sam's help to go find their dad.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every part of this finale was bad. Let's get that clear. But that little piece of dialogue, I will give them some credit.
That
The tears
is
were real.
that
It hits
there,
you.
the shiniest turd of it all.
Yeah, it hits you, right? Yeah, okay.
We're not going to get too far into just how stupid this death was. It took a long time. He was impaled on a rebar. Dean Winchester, who very nearly killed God himself, gets taken out by a rusty nail. There's also the fact that, you know, you could have probably called an ambulance during this time, or even you're in a room full of vampires. You could use their blood to turn Dean into a vampire so he heals, and then use more of that blood to turn him back to human before he kills anybody, and therefore gets stuck as a vampire, which is something that they did back in season 6.
No, we're not going to do that. That's-
They also
Wow.
use a very similar trick to get Dean back from being a Deanman.
This is not new territory, and yet it's also frustrating because part of Cass's death was to save the world, yeah, but it was also specifically to save Dean. And to just turn around and go, actually, I'm happy to die, is kind of a kick in the fucking teeth on that one. Also, Dean got a dog. You know those, you have no will to live, so here's a dog, so you have no choice but to live? He got one of those, and then
Okay.
died anyway.
Wow.
Following Dean's death, Sam
Mhm.
goes to live a, quote, apple pie life where he gets a blurry wife and a kid who he names after his dead brother, and then he grows old and dies. And then they reunite in heaven, where for some reason their horrible, neglectful, and semi-abusive father is also there now.
Wait, hang on. Can we just dial that back 2 seconds? The wig
Absolutely.
and the makeup they put Sam in when he's old and coming onto his deathbed, awful.
Oh yeah, it was garbage. Also in heaven, the band Kansas is there, which implies that they're all dead in this world.
Fuck.
Because
Shit.
the band Kansas sings the most famous song ever to grace the series. Carry on, my
Yes,
wayward son.
So this finale was bad. It was just flat out a bad ending to this story. And if it had been good, fans might have let the series die. But because it hasn't, we will never be free. So much so that you want to know the most recent event in season 16, our ARG bullshit. February 9th, former cast members Chad Lindbergh and Samantha Ferris on Twitter voice support for Destiel and start planning a fake Destiel wedding in the Roadhouse. And we're not done yet because March 5th to 7th, the coming weekend, is
Mhm.
another
As of the point of this
supernatural
recording.
Mhm.
is another supernatural event. The official supernatural virtual weekend, where we will presumably be getting panels with the actors one last time. And I simply cannot imagine the kind of weird questions they're going to be asked. Like, yeah, they have NDAs, but there's also just a limit, you know? There's only so
Oh.
much people can take.
I mean, at this point now, you might as well just have fun with it. It's already done. You could say whatever you want now because these characters are no longer alive in some form or way, whatever. So you can say whatever you want. So at this point, just say whatever you feel like and have fun with the fans, man. Just give them what they want.
There's also the fact that Jensen Ackles has a production company that's been trying to get the rights to Supernatural so they can do some sort of reboot or rehash because he hated that ending. Padalecki has moved on to the Project Walker, which was actually offered to Ackles first. And the fact that he would have turned that down is insane because he has a known thing for cowboys.
And also the Walker Ranger being probably one of the most famous cowboys.
So it feels like something had to have happened for him to so desperately not want to work with CW again.
Who knows? Maybe he just wants to move on with his life and do something a bit different now.
It is hypothetically possible that Walker was just too expensive and they couldn't foot the bill for it.
I do know he has a couple of things going on. He runs his own like he has his own liquor and stuff. And I mean, he's a busy dude. Maybe he wants to just do something a bit different. Who knows?
Obviously, almost all of this is speculation. People putting together little pieces that may or may not actually be evidence of anything.
Some gays finally being good at math.
So it's not like this unrest has come from nowhere. This unrest has come from the fact that these people are fans of a show that is actively homophobic all the time and hates them personally, which isn't a fun experience. But at the same time, sometimes a spade is just a spade, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a badly written show.
Well, I mean, it's the CW.
They do, in fact, have a track record.
Seems like for their shows, things that make it past the third season just don't seem to do well.
This show has lived its life on tenterhooks. And as a result, it has been full of weird misogyny. Almost every female character in the show dies. Very strange relationships. And queerbaiting. And yet,
we
still fucking think about it.
And it's still going. This was what the fans had dubbed Season 16 because the story was not over yet.
And you know what? It might still not be. We really just don't know until after, at the very least, this coming weekend, where maybe we'll hear people's last opinions. Or maybe they'll spark yet another round of holy shit controversies.
And we will start Season 17.
At which point I will cry.
Yikes.
God, I thank you guys for listening to this, because if you think this was insane to hear like this, just imagine how it felt to be on Tumblr the night of the American election. There was a Boku no Hero reveal at the same time. People were losing their minds about this while also watching if Georgia was gonna flip blue or if it was gonna go red, and it was one of the strangest nights of my entire fucking life.
And that night's legacy may not be over.
When will we be free?
Find out next time on Supernatural Z.
Beastie, play us out.
Oh, jeez. As we finish with this, or supposedly 16 DLC, you can always find us at our social, which is our Twitter at Crusade Nerd, our Instagram at Nerd Crusade, and we also upload every Wednesday to YouTube, and you can download any previous episodes or listen in on your mobile device to the Anchor.fm website or wherever podcasts are found by searching Nerd Crusade.
And that's to be continued.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, go ahead and button mash a thumbs up. If you want to swing by when we have a new video, web up the sub button. Oh, and while you're at it, hit the bell to be notified by.